Ermes Gasparini put on an absolute clinic against Gergi Cadorette at East vs West. He totally denied Gergi's access to his power and flash pinned him every single round. So how did Ermes do this? What was his secret to defeating the flop press? In this video, we're going to analyze Ermes Gasparini versus Gergi Cadorette at East vs West. When trying to understand why Ermes Gasparini was able to destroy Gergi so easily, there's a couple of different things that we have to understand. Firstly, I do think that Ermes' technique was just about perfect against Gergi in this match. He did everything right, and we're going to cover all of that stuff in analysis. However, we also need to cover Ermes' specific strengths, his arm length, his back pressure. There are things that are very different about Ermes when compared to other arm wrestlers that Gergi has done way better against. So getting into this round one, you can see that when Ermes is setting up, he even has a little bit of a gap right there where his pinky pad is. He's kind of pushing past Gergi, and he's also not afraid of trying to match Gergi in the center table. What's so interesting about Ermes' setup throughout this match is that it really looks like he's trying to hook Gergi more so than he's trying to top roll him. Notice how right off the bat, there is a huge amount of wrist-on-wrist contact. If you're setting up in a way to simply prioritize hand control, oftentimes you want to avoid wrist-on-wrist contact. You want to get as far away, as far out the back as you can as compared to your opponent, but Ermes is setting up as if he wants to prioritize arm power, which is exactly what he wants to do. Ermes is so confident in his back pressure that upon the go of the match, we actually see him allow Gergi to initiate, and he simply absorbs that hit. And he doesn't initiate with top roll, but he initiates with drag, with pulling the match toward his sensor, with side pressure, and with cup. And he actually allows Gergi to get his cup in. You can see that Gergi's wrist is totally bent here. Ermes allows that to happen, he catches, and then and only then does he roll back out once he has established his cup, once he has gotten a pretty low grip on Gergi's wrist, and from here there's no escaping for Gergi. Gergi cannot go underneath like he normally would have been able to if Ermes took more of a classic top roll setup with a more shallow grip. And Gergi actually tries to bail out underneath, but he just can't do so because Ermes is taking this lower grip. Notice how right off the go of the match, Ermes' hand actually drops in height. He's bringing the match downward, not just toward his center, not just sideways, but he's actually coming down. He's crashing down on Gergi's hand, and really, I would say the move Ermes used here is a hook. You can see him supinating off the go and crashing down onto Gergi's pronator, as if he's trying to force Gergi into a hook and Gergi's the one trying to run away. And by doing this, Ermes is completely denying Gergi's access to his pronation. If you're trying to flop press without pronation, it's extremely difficult, it feels very awkward. So Ermes is denying Gergi access to his pronation, but he's also denying Gergi access to his wrist extension with this low grip. Getting into round two here, we can see maybe even a more clear example of the lane Ermes is trying to take. He's trying to control Gergi's thumb. When he initiates, he hardly even goes backward. He just goes pretty much straight cup and sideways. And he even scoots his elbow forward, and he's supinating while he's doing this. He's really not doing very much of a top roll lane. This is much more of a high hook lane. And he's controlling Gergi's thumb. He's controlling his pronator by controlling his thumb. So Ermes receives a warning, and we're going to restart. But on the restart, we're going to see more of the exact same thing Ermes was doing in round one. Potentially, he now has even more confidence. And once again, upon the initiation of this go, Ermes is not pronating at all. He's supinating, and he's blocking Gergi's ability to escape by going underneath or escape by going out the back like flop pressers often do. Ermes is securing his cup, and he's dropping in height. He's sliding down onto the wrist of Gergi Cadorette, controlling that pronator, and Ermes is just straight up hooking. I don't think that Ermes even tried to roll out here. I think that Ermes just kept on hooking, and Gergi was actually the one that tried to bail out underneath, and that's why you see his wrist get cracked back. I don't think that Ermes cracked Gergi's wrist. I think Gergi was trying to flop underneath, and Ermes was perfectly content with just hooking Gergi using supination and cup and never rolling out at all. And this is the moment when we see Ermes walk off and Gergi just looks completely confused. He has no idea what he's going to do in this match, and that's because he really has no access to his power. He just can't use the move he wants to use if Ermes is going to continue in this style. And we can see once again in the replay how perfect that is. That is a traditional hook. And notice that when Gergi shoves forward, the angle at which Gergi shoves forward is literally matching Ermes' forearm angle. So Gergi's pressure, Gergi's pressing power, I'm sure that Gergi is outputting a huge amount of force. But the problem is he's literally outputting it directly into Ermes' bone line. So the only way Jerry could win would be to compress Ermes' forearm bone, which is never going to happen. Jerry has zero access to Ermes' bicep. He has zero access to attack anything of Ermes that could actually fail. And that is why this just looks so dominant, is because Ermes completely denies Jerry's access to his power by hooking Jerry, by controlling his pronator, and by dragging him to the center of the table by winning the battle of side pressure. And in the third and final ready go, we see pretty much more of the same thing. But this time, Ermes lets Jerry hit for a second. He actually waits just a brief moment after the hit right here. Ermes does just a slight pause. He looks at Jerry and then he rolls him down to the pad. In this moment, I think that Ermes may have actually engaged some pronation here, because you can see Jerry kind of shoots past him and gets a really good position if he was trying to hook Ermes here. But Ermes just has way too much back pressure. He has way too much ability to roll outs, and he just takes Jerry right down to the pin pad. Even though Jerry's elbow is way off the front of the pad, it doesn't matter at all. Jerry just has no ability to isolate Ermes' bicep. He has no ability to get around Ermes' frame in this match. So I do think this was a near perfect technical performance by Ermes, but I still need to talk about Ermes' back pressure. The thing about this match is that Ermes has like 100 kilograms of back pressure, and so I think that that played a really big factor. If Jerry was going up against someone like Alex Kerdetcha, this would not have worked. He could have used the exact same strategy. Alex or Vitaly or someone with a long arm could have used that same strategy that Ermes employed, and I think that Jerry would have won. So it's important to note that this isn't just some perfect flop press counter that completely nullifies the effectiveness of Jerry's move. This only works so well because Ermes' back pressure is so strong, because his side pressure is so strong, because his cup is so strong. And one other thing that we need to talk about is the fact that Ermes is extremely short for a super heavyweight puller. People like Alex Kerdetcha, Vitaly Laletin are way taller than Ermes, and what that means is when Jerry pulls those guys, Jerry is going to start with a much more vertical forearm, and those guys are already going to start with a much more shallow angle on their forearm. Their forearm is going to be much lower, and it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to get into this position that we see Ermes in, where Jerry's simply compressing that forearm bone. Jerry's going to have just a way easier time mechanically trying to isolate the bicep of a Vitaly Laletin, Alex Kerdetcha. Even Gennady has significantly longer forearms than Ermes. Levon has way longer forearms than Ermes, etc. So I think that Ermes' shorter forearm length also made this way more difficult on Jerry than it would have if somebody like Alex or Vitaly implemented the same technique that Ermes did. So there you have it. I think that Ermes was able to dominate in this match so well because of the perfect technique he used. He used a high hook. He didn't try to go outside. He didn't try to top roll Jerry, but he really put an emphasis on cupping and controlling Jerry's pronator, removing Jerry's access to get underneath or out the back by matching Jerry in the dead center table and by going straight down and just crushing him, going right over the top of him. And also because of Ermes' combination of insane back pressure, insane side pressure, and that shorter forearm length, I think all work together to make Ermes just an impossible style match for Jerry. I think it's going to be really difficult for Jerry to ever do anything against Ermes. Potentially, Jerry has an even better style matchup against Levon. I'm not saying that Jerry's going to beat Levon, but I'm just saying that all things equal, just in terms of the style match, Ermes might just be the most difficult style match for Jerry out there. But let me know what you guys think about this. Do you agree with the reasons I gave in the analysis of this match, or do you think that there are other reasons that Jerry was not able to do anything to Ermes in this fight?